So I'm just going to be going over a few of my needle felting tips for beginners to needle felting. So when you're needle felting, you want to consider the type of felting needle that will be best for what you're making. So you can get different types of needles. You can get ones which are triangular, star or spiral, and that relates to the number of barbs on the end of the needle. And you can also get different gauges of needle, and the gauge relates to the diameter of the needle. So a higher gauge is a thinner needle. So you just need to consider what's going to be best for what you're felting. Normally, a good needle to start off with is a 38 gauge star felting needle, but if you'd like me to go into more details about the different needle types, then I can make a separate video regarding this. It's also important that when you're felting that you make sure that you roll the wool tightly. You can see that's what I'm doing here. And basically this is because when you roll the wool tightly, it compresses everything down and it means that there's less felting to do. Essentially when you're felting, you're compressing the wool fibres together and combining them, so if you start off with a tight roll of wool to begin with, then that takes some of the work out of it and it makes the felting process a bit quicker. If you want to make colours out of wool that you've already got, you can do this via blending wool together. So sometimes this is useful if you want a slightly lighter colour. So you can see that at the moment there's sort of quite a dark pink there, so I'm just going to get some of my white wool and I'm just going to use my hands just to blend the two together. Now obviously this will only subtly make the wool lighter, but it can be very useful because it means you don't always have to buy more wool. So you can see that's the colour I've made and that's the original, and it can be useful also if you need grey, because you can combine black and white together to make the grey. But obviously if you want to make lots of this wool colour on a larger scale, you might be better off using like the brushes to blend the wool. You can normally get these on different felting websites, and it's just something quite useful to know. And the last thing is that it's sometimes cheaper if you use core wool to make the core structure of your felted objects and then add the colour on the outside. And it's also worth bearing in mind that if you are felting a darker object, then you might want to use a core wool that is also darker in colour, because then when you're putting the dark colour on top, such as the black, then it means that it will be easier because you haven't got as much white colour showing through. I hope that all makes sense. Any questions at all, please just leave them in the comment section below.